Excellent.
I was
Okay. Our forum this morning is being
and 4
sponsored by the
years
League
with
of Women
National
Voters
Guard.
and Windsor City Votes, so
care.
we thank them very much. There is coffee up here and cinnamon roll. And you're more than welcome to please come and help yourself, so there's nothing left, so I will not be tempted to take any home. All right, so come. We have a couple of minutes before we're going to start the forum. If you'd like to do that, then we will get it going. For a minute.
Haven't you voted down?
We're going to get this underway. We're only 2 minutes late, so I think we'll be able to move forward.
Okay.
All right. Good morning. My name is Agnes Peer. I'm going to be your moderator for today. Our presenters will be Town Manager Peter Sousa and Superintendent of Schools Dr. Terrell Gill. The way the flow will go, each of them will do I'll do a little welcoming, we'll do a presentation, and then we will open it up for questions. I'm going to read the ground rules right now so that we can all stay and move this along quickly. All right. The ground rules are the following. Questions are asked by just raising your hand. I will recognize the person speaking, and if need be, we may have to restate the question. A person may ask one question at a time until all others have had an opportunity to ask a question. 1 minute is allowed for each question. Now, we will give that some leeway because we'll be more casual, but we need to move this along. Time limits will be observed. I have those if need be. Attendees are expected to act in a respectful manner. The moderator will have responsibility for enforcing. The audience may ask questions, but statements from the audience are not permitted in this format. In order for everyone to hear the questions and answers, please refrain from having conversations in the audience if necessary. Again, as I said earlier, thank you very much for the League of Women Voters and the Windsor CT votes, and for all the help the town gave us, and that Win TV is recording this. Now, Town Manager, are you going to go first?
I will. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Hope you can hear me all right. So I'm going to provide a brief overview of the budget, and then Dr. Hill will talk about the Board of Education budget. So once again, this has been a challenging budget season. What the budget the Town Council has approved is essentially a budget that maintains the services for general government. It continues investments in repaving our neighborhood streets, repairing sidewalks, and investing in our various facilities, both town and school facilities. It also increases the financial support to the Windsor Ambulance Association, our emergency medical services, and that is a result of a study the Town Council commissioned several years ago, which identified the resources that the ambulance service needed to continue to meet the growing demands here in town. As I mentioned, it's been a challenging budget season. As you all know, we're in the second year of the 2-year phase-in of the state-mandated property revaluation process, which saw residential properties increase dramatically over the last 5 years. Most residential properties in value increased over 50%. It's also been a challenge because, just like in our household budgets, the town's budgets are experiencing the same inflationary pressures. We have seen increases in our utilities, in our software licenses. We've had to invest more money into this nasty little thing called cybersecurity, and we've also seen significant increases in health insurance. In terms of revenues, the town receives most of its revenues, the majority of its revenues, approximately 85% of revenues, through property taxes. Property taxes for residential properties, our businesses in town. Our businesses also pay property tax on their equipment, and then obviously on motor vehicles as well. That is, we're not dissimilar to other towns across the state, because the state of Connecticut does not allow for significant revenue diversification. Other states that I've worked in allow municipalities to have local sales tax, and so that reduces the reliance on property tax. They're still receiving them dollars in order to provide services, but it's just comes in different streams. In Connecticut, we do not have as much flexibility as other states do. We've received approximately $16 million from the state. in state aid annually. And that's about 10% of the overall budget. Most of that $16 million, approximately $12.9 million, is in the form of school aid. And I'll make a note that the amount of money that we project to receive in school aid in fiscal year 26 is the same amount of money, within a couple $10,000, same amount of money as we received as a town in 2016. So as we clearly know, the inflation has changed has increased over the course of the last 10 years. We're fortunate to at least have maintained that amount of state school aid. Other communities across the state, due to the very complex formula that the state has actually seen a decrease in state aid for schools. So at least we've maintained, it's not a great solace, but it is something, at least we've maintained that $12.9 million over the last 10 years. We've also lost tax revenue in the last 2 years due to the downturn in the office market, due to the work from home trend, which is not changing dramatically. So our office buildings are still significantly vacant, and so the values of those properties have decreased in terms of assessed value for the purposes of taxes. So we've lost close to $3 million in tax revenue due to the downturn in the office market. And so that $3 million has had to be made up through shifting those costs, if you will, real estate taxes, to residential as well as to other businesses, the non-office businesses. So that is a note that that I wanted to make sure that folks understood. Just a few other comments. Obviously, the cost of business continues to rise for both the school district and for general government. Just a few simple examples. Health insurance for the town side for retirees as well as for current employees increased 16% over 1 year to the next. So town of Windsor obviously wants to retain the best employees that we can and attract the best talented employees, not only if they're full-time or in part-time status. And just as an example, the state minimum wage has increased 17% over the last 3 years. So now the minimum wage in Connecticut is $16.39 an hour. And so you might ask, well, what does that have to do with the town budget? We hire a significant number of part-time folks to provide fantastic services to our residents. We've done that because not all jobs need to have full-time positions, or some jobs lend themselves better to be filled in a part-time way. But what that does is drive up that cost. It drives up the cost of our labor costs. When someone can work at McDonald's or work part-time at one of the distribution centers in town and make close to $20, $22 an hour, in order for us to compete and attract folks to work for the town in part-time positions, we have to pay in that $20 to $22 an hour, where perhaps 3 or 4 years ago we were paying $17 or $18. So, and then lastly, this is just one that I always find is interesting: the cost of asphalt. So we have over 160 miles of roads that the town is responsible for, and we have to repave those roads every 12 to 15 years. And so cost of asphalt has gone up 35% in 5 years. So those are just some examples of the upward pressures that the town is seeing, not unlike what all of us see in our own household budgets. So that's a high level overview, and with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Hill.
So good morning. I'm Dr. Terrell Hill, for those of you who I have not met or seen before. I have the blessed distinction of being the guy who has to do the biggest part of the town budget. So I know when I walk around town, people look at me sideways sometimes. But I want to do my best this morning to explain to you how we got where we are. Okay, so first I'll say these things. When I do the budget, this is my 5th year doing the budget as superintendent. When I do the budget, I start with any place that's as far away from the classroom as possible. So I try not to change or impact the classroom. That's where the teaching and learning happens, and that's what the business of a school system is, to teach the young people in that town. So when I cut or make any moves for budget purposes, I have that in mind, top of mind. Also, I keep in mind when I'm doing the budget, and I will say this with all sincerity, I'm doing the budget in this town. I live here. I pay taxes too. My comment is, it sounds comical, but it's not. I don't get a superintendent tax discount. There's nothing like that happens for me. I have a wife to answer to at home. She doesn't want to see any more bills get higher either. So when I'm doing the budget, you have that working for you as well. I'm not just some superintendent working in this place, living in that place. Like, well, they'll survive. So, because what I do, quote unquote, to you, I'm doing to myself. So just setting that groundwork there, that's how I think. And I'm also very conservative when it comes to money. In my house, in my personal life, people see things. They think everything I have is more expensive than it is. But I'm really conservative with money. And I'm looking at you beautiful folks, over 25 out there in the audience. And I understand finances very well. So I am not trying to do anything that puts pain on you at all. I'm just doing what I have to do to keep the school district running. So that being said, when I start preparing the budget, I work with my Chief of Operations, Daniel Batchelder. So we sit down, we start approximately in November, really getting serious. We actually start looking at numbers every year after the referendum. But by November, just before Thanksgiving, we're having serious conversations. We have spreadsheets that we use, and we sit there and we decide, what can we cut? I do not present the superintendent's budget to the school board until January each year. So the budget that comes up in terms of just rolling things over, lights on, people hired, buses rolling, it's always significantly higher than the number you guys ever see. You never see that number, at least not since I've been superintendent, because I'm going to do lots of cuts before I go to the board. Because normally when Danielle hits the button and it rolls up on my screen, I go, oh, no one's going to take that one. So we start cutting. So just know that cuts happen before I present to the board in January. And I present the proposed budget to the board. This is what I'm saying we need. This year I was a little bothered. I'm a guy who's very personal, so I'm going to tell you how I feel. I heard rumors like fluff, stashing money away. I don't have any fluff in my budget. I'm not stashing money away. I don't know where that came from, but I've addressed it each time we've had this meeting. There is no fluff. The budget is just to keep the schools running. As Peter said, and now I'm hooked, going to sleep thinking about asphalt. The asphalt,
I
increase.
succeeded.
You got me, because I need to do my driveway again. Now I'm like, oh, I guess I'm stuck. But that increase, it's everywhere. There's nothing that has gotten cheaper. Nothing. Everything costs more, and we can delay. We can put things off, right? I hate the term kick the can. I liked the game when I was a kid. I hate the term in business, because all it does is it delays the inevitable, and the inevitable will always cost more when it comes to money. So that being said, we have 6 bargaining units that I have to address. They have contracts. All those contracts have pay raises in them yearly. There are no contracts that say we're going to give you back money. Okay, so 6 bargaining units with pay increases. Each employee also has benefits and insurance, and we have to pay for that. Just like the town, just like many of you, if you're still working or you're paying your Medicare, things go up. Nothing stays the same. So insurance just continues to increase. We've also had a few significant claims this year. Significant. So it's really ballooned our insurance payments. Like we just generally don't expect that, but you can't control that, and we pay our own insurance, right? So that's where some of that cost is coming from. We have transportation costs. These are the buses to pick our kids up and get them to school. We have to provide that. We've cut down on the number of buses that we had originally when we signed this contract, and we're coming to the close of the contract very soon, and we'll have to negotiate a new one. But we've cut down on a number of buses, always looking for ways to be more efficient, but the kids still have to get to school. The buses run on gas, not love, so we have to make sure we pay for gas. You guys see gas at the gas pump? If you have gas coming to your home, like, we know what those costs are. We also have to think about lights and the heat. Short period of time, air conditioning for the places that have it. So all those things, those utility costs, they've gone up incredibly, and we have to pay for them. Again, we're always looking for efficiencies. I'm always figuring out ways to cut things, to join. Some of the savings this year, when the board voted in February to approve the budget with a 1% cut, because I presented a 6.88% budget, and the board said, okay, we will approve it to go to the town, but you have to cut 1% first. If you're doing budgets normally, you know you should be ready for that, because budgets aren't necessarily going to go up. They typically go down. People want cuts. That makes sense. So Ms. Batchelder and I are prepared. We had various cuts in mind, and when I say had them prepared, because we knew what we could live with. No one likes cuts. They hurt everyone. But again, I'm going to try to find the cuts that don't impact the classroom environment as much as possible. One of those cuts that I heard a lot of grumbling about, I understand, I really do, but I'm the one to blame if anybody wants to keep grumbling. The early childhood program, the non-special ed portion, which was under the Smart Start grant. So it's a early childhood program that we had for about 10 years. We had a grant. The grant was significant at the start. Like most grants, it petered off, and it's a very low amount. So we started putting in, the school system, more money. And when I was asked to cut 1%, again, Ms. Batchelder and I sit down in my office, we look at the spreadsheet, and I'm cutting as far away from the classroom. And I know some people will say, well, that's the classroom. It is, but preschool is not a function of public school normally. Just in case people don't know, it's not a function of public school normally. Now, it's a great thing to have if you can pay for it. More and more public schools that can afford to, they try to pull it in, but preschool is not truly part of the public school process. It is typically kindergarten to 12th grade. And so I made a decision to cut that program. That saved us, out of the $862,000, which is the 1% reduction, the preschool program cut was $250,000. So that was a significant savings with one program. Additionally, there are staff openings that occurred, because things still go on, even though we're deliberating the budget, they still go on. So I made the decision to not fill certain positions. So my schools may want them, but I told them, this position's open, I am not gonna fill it, don't ask. It's now a cut. So no one lost their position because someone left it vacant, but I'm not filling it. So that all combined, and some utility cuts and some other things you can see in the document, that's what got us to our 1% reduction. That went before the town council. I'm happy that they didn't make any further reductions. So the next up is the referendum for us. But that's how we got where we are.
All right, now we're going to move into the question and answer section. What I'd like you to do is to raise your hand. I'll recognize you, and then please stand up, give your name, and ask your question. Thank you very much. Yes, gentleman in the back.
My name is Richard Rutkowski. I live next door at King's Landing. I have a question of our town manager. We are only one of 6 towns that pay our taxes once a year. In consideration of the money flow that the seniors have, I wonder if you would consider having taxes paid twice a year.
Thank you very much for that question. We are indeed one of roughly 7 or 8 communities that do collect our real estate taxes with one billing installment. And the town council has, on occasion in the last 7 to 8 years, reviewed that policy, and the town council has decided to remain with the one payment installment. Part of that is part of it's a business decision, to be quite frankly. we are able to have less staff within our tax collection office. But more and more what it is that we are able to earn interest on those dollars that we collect in July and August. We're able to earn 5 or 6 months worth of interest, which goes into the general fund, which essentially mitigates the needed tax increase. If we were not earning money on that cash that's in investments, we would need to have raised the mill rate that much further. So it's something that town council has reviewed, and I suspect will continue to review on a periodic basis.
Thank you.
Let's give them a mic out
Oh,
there, just so they have it. Thank you. Yep. And then if you guys don't mind sharing that one. Another question? Yes. Gentleman with the
I
hat
have a
on.
question for Dr. Hill.
Could you give your name,
he
please?
just did.
Richard Britkowski. I live
Oh,
next
yeah.
door,
Sorry.
over here.
You still live there?
My question, I have two questions.
Yes, sir.
Some towns are going to use the schools 12 months a year, still giving the kids their vacation time. The other question I have, I observed a bus coming to the same house, one to pick up middle school and one to pick up the high schools. Why don't they send one bus to pick up both up and then distribute the students? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And so a little bias here. I like that Army hat. He knows that. Go Army. But I'll answer your second question first because it's a little easier. The reason why it's not the same bus for the two different schools because they have different start times. So, and that's also how, we rerun the entire district. So that bus could come around high school, middle school has a different time, and then the elementary schools have a different time. So that's why you will see that. Otherwise, if we picked everyone up, you'd have kids clamoring in the building for, approximately 35, 40 minutes. And our staff are also under contract to be in the buildings at a certain time. And so when you go from the high school to the middle school, for instance, the staff are not required to be in the building at the same time. So there'd be no one there to supervise the kids as you go down from the high school time. That's why the buses do what they do. And the first question, if I think I understand you, you're talking about year-round schools. So I'm a fan of year-round schools, a big fan of it. I don't know if my whole entire 640, member staff in Windsor would kill me if I brought that up, but I'm a big fan of year-round schools. And for those of you who don't really know what that means, like this school system, the way most of us, I assume, have gone to school, if you've gone to school here in America, we go based on, an agrarian system. Like it was designed for when people were farming. Although we still have farms, that is not the major industry for our country, and that is not how we function. So there really is no reason for us to have 2 months in the summer off. There just isn't. When I talk about it, when I do talks and sit on panels, I tell them, and I've been an educator now 32 years. I'm from Virginia up here, and I've never seen an entire summer where I don't see kids come by the school or the office. They always do, particularly around the beginning of August, because they're bored. They're really bored. And we deal with, on the educational side, the learning loss in September, that being all the stuff, if you guys remember yourselves, that's the stuff you forgot all summer long, swimming, riding your bike, camping, and doing everything else, which is fun and nice. But then the school is spending a lot of time having to do remediation in the fall. So there are places around the country, school districts, who've gone with the year-round school system. There are different models, but as the gentleman said, it's typically you get the same amount of vacation in schools, it's just the year is broken up differently. So right now in Connecticut, the law is we have to go to school a minimum of 180 days. So as long as you get 180 school days in, then your school calendar is legal or justified by the state. So we could take that 180 days and spread it out throughout the year. And there is definitely data to show that the learning loss is definitely minimized, and people get adjusted to it pretty quickly. The fact that people fight it so hard is because, as I tell folks, that's just the paradigm or the way of doing things that we're just used to. Everyone runs out of the school, throw papers up, movies and all right in June, and then they go do whatever, and then they come back the end of August or early September. But there really is no legitimate reason why we still do it that way. But I'm brave, sir, but I don't know if I want to run up that hill. Not this late in the game for me. I don't think there's an appetite in the district for people to do year-round schooling, but that's what that's about.
Thank you.
Another question? Yes, in the back. Would you stand up and give your name, please?
Oh.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name's Kathy Roby. I'm from 122 Eastview Drive. In the Sunday paper, they had an excellent article about something called Learn to Earn. It's a track, I believe, if I understood the article correctly, for the school system that would start freshman year in high school. And it was based on extensive study of the fact that we do not have an adequate supply of electricians and plumbers and people who build things and put them together and then fix them when we all break them. And this is a problem. This program, as I understand it, when it's put in place at the high school level, allows students to learn and earn simultaneously with the preparation before they turn 16, and as soon as they're 16, they are placed in sort of internship roles. Are we looking at anything like this? Because to me, this would be a means to keep kids in school that are not academically interested or inclined, and we're beating ourselves to death over, you've got to read this and do this and do that, when they would appreciate math and reading much more if it was geared towards something that at the end of the week put a little something in their pocket.
Yes.
And knowing that this is the kind of job where they can make just as much money as they might have otherwise.
Yeah,
and
Dr.
get
Hill?
started early. So I'm wondering if we've ever looked at that, what the cost might be. I don't believe it's here, but is it something we can look at for the future? Because it would really be a benefit to the students.
You good? Thank you very much. So again, that's another area that I am very interested in and I love, and I know the board members have heard me talk about that. We have spent a lot of energy and money trying to bolster up our CTE classes, which is the new term that's used for old school shop classes, so that students can actually, the ones who are not, I won't say it's not about academically inclined, but they're not about just the books. They like to put their hands on things and use their hands, as about 70% of America does, because only a little over 30% actually have earned bachelor degrees in America. As much as we talk about college, that's a pretty consistent number. So I'm a big fan of the vocational learning. We have not looked at that particular Learn to Earn program directly, but we're always trying to banter about ideas of how we can grow our vocational programming. I do know that I've given the edict a few years ago to my Office of Family and Community Partnerships to expand our partnerships and work with the Chamber of Commerce to find out about getting internships for students at the various companies, particularly on the Day Hill Road corridor. So it's something that's very important to me, and we're going to continue to work on that.
Another question? This lady over here?
He got the mic.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Joe Perry. I live at 347 Route Ave here in Windsor. I have a question for our superintendent of schools.
It's my day today.
I just wonder if you have a plan, a bold plan, to make Windsor High the gold standard for all other high schools to be measured. I choose the high school because to me it's the culmination of all the other schools.
Mm-hmm. I like that statement. Thank you very much. So that's the plan every day, is for Windsor to be the best. Yesterday evening when we were at McQuonic School, there was a great question, and I shared, I said, let me just give it to you honestly. I know citizens hear about the Alliance District designation and these various designations. People put rankings on websites, great schools, all these things. The things that did not exist when we went to school. So I tell people, let me just give you a quick education. I'm not gonna go deep. Maybe I'll talk about it at a coffee talk. You're all more than welcome to come and I can go much deeper. But when all of you went to school, the only test you took was the Iowa test of basic skills. That was the test you took. I like to joke and say I grew up in Massachusetts. I had never been to Iowa. I still haven't been. So I have no idea how that became the standard for the country, but that was a test. Over the last 30 years, the U.S. Department of Education, for all kinds of reasons, as I say, it's much deeper than I can explain now, has put in all this testing for school districts around the country as a hook in order for you to get the title funds and the monies. And so the testing is what everyone gets judged by, right? Like this is that, this, and I will say, I've said it to the governor many times, the commissioner, I care less about the testing. I've actually, testified. I wish we could get rid of the testing because it just gives a designation that means nothing. Windsor High School, every single year, graduates an extremely high percentage of students in the 90s, which is like 90, right? That's my assistant sup for instructional services, 92%. And just to give you a quick comparison, I'm looking out, like I said, all you over 25, the average graduation rate for the United States of America in the 1950s, could anybody take a guess what it was? Because everything was better then, right? That's what I always hear. So it was 50%. 50%. That was the entire nation, the average. There's nowhere in the nation that's there now. But we hear more, right? So and the further you get away from something, you always think like, oh my goodness, right? My parents didn't like the music I was listening to. It was the death of music. Now I hear myself literally saying the same things. What kind of music is that? So the kids are all right. That's actually a book. The kids are all right. We're going to continue to work to get better and better. That for me is an internal thing. That's my pride. That's who I am as a professional. I want all of my kids to feel like when they walk out of Windsor High School that they are absolutely prepared for everything out there in the world. Because the tests are really measuring one standard. And as it came up earlier, they're really only focused on the kids who are going to be going right off to college. And I shared with you already that folks in this country, the percentage that have college degrees, it hovers around 30 to 33%. And it really hasn't moved in about 60 years. So there's a lot of myths that we push around our society. So our school's not bad. And our kids go off to every tier of college in the US. So there is no school that a kid in Avon, Glastonbury, or Greenwich is going to that Windsor kids are not getting into every single year as well.
We had another question.
That's why I do the coffee talk, because it'll make this happen.
Bolder than I thought. I was going to best in Connecticut.
I am that bold, and I actually, you have a superintendent who, quite frankly, I do get around the country and talk. So I've never been interested in being the best in the neighborhood. When I started the high school, I left Windsor High, 2009 to start a high school Inc., an insurance and finance focused high school in Hartford. I said when they introduced me to the board in the town, principals used to get up like, we're going to do the best to make you proud, sir. I told Dr. Adamowski, superintendent, I'm going to be the best high school in this city. That's a given. That's easy. And I'm going to be one of distinction in this state and the country. I didn't even know that we were going to get noticed in Europe as well, because that happened. So my mom taught her 3 boys, set your sights high and work hard and go for it. I push my staff the same way. I talk to students regularly. I'm not a superintendent who sits in his office. I'm in the schools. I know the kids. I don't just wait till graduation to shake hands of strangers. So I'm telling them what I want. My own kids and all the kids in Windsor Public Schools, the staff have heard it many times, they're all hills. I don't get a tax break for them, but they're all hills. And that's how I operate.
Hi, I'm gonna give the superintendent a break.
I appreciate you so much.
Your name.
Coffee.
I need to go to the bathroom.
Peter, I'm Judy Ruger. I live over on West Bank, on Park Avenue. And you mentioned the second-year phase-in of the budget, and I'm a little unclear maybe how that impacts on us as a taxpayer.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the question. So every 5 years, each community in Connecticut needs to revalue all of the property, both residential and commercial, and what by state law, and it's mandated And so what that basically does for Windsor, our revaluation values were set based upon the summer of 2018 values. And so in the summer of 2023, we were required by the state to review all of the values. So they call that revaluation of the properties. And so essentially what it takes is where was the fair market value of similar sized homes, similar types of homes in summer of 23. And so what we experienced, just like the rest of the country, a huge appreciation of values of homes. And so we saw on average residential values increased over 50% in that 5-year period. And while businesses, except for the office market, while other businesses, properties did well, they did not appreciate in value anywhere close to 50%. And then you couple that with the significant decline in the office market values, we had a significant change in terms of the tax base in the value. So now all of a sudden residential values as the whole pie of our grand list, which is our tax base, now became a larger percentage was residential compared to back in the previous 5 years. Commercial and industrial had a bigger share of that pie. And so that was such a big impact to residential properties. The town council opted to take those assessed values, that increase in assessed values, and split it in half. So half of that value got applied to the fiscal year 25 budget, and the second half now gets applied to the budget that is going to the voters on May 13th. And so the majority of the tax impact that you see, and I'm going to use my house and my wife's house, 60-year-old house, Pilgrim Village, beautiful little neighborhood, but our house went up in value over 57% between the summer of 23 and, summer of 18 and summer of 23. So, huge increase. Even though the tax rate decreased, there's still a significant increase. We would have seen last year about a 35% increase in our tax bill if the town council had made revaluation in one fell swoop. And so the council made a policy decision to split it into 2 years. So, but this year, in our case, we're going to see a 15% tax increase if this budget were to be adopted, and approximately 70% of that is due to revaluation, and the other 30% or so is due to actual what is occurring in the budget due to expenses that are increasing. I know I kind of went a little bit deep on that, so Judy, I'm not sure if that helped answer your question.
So basically, our taxes will probably go up 15%.
It's going to vary depending upon how much your individual home went up in assessed value. So you can go onto the town's website. We have we call it our tax calculator, and so you can put in your address, and you'll be able to see how much, in dollar terms, this proposed budget would increase your real estate taxes, and we break it out, how much is due to revaluation, due to property appreciation, and how much is due to the quote-unquote budgetary impact. But it is going to vary. I looked up yesterday some homes down in the Ford Road, Custer area, and they were different percentages just because of how much their home appreciated differently over that course of that 5-year period.
There was somebody like that lady.
Just a minute, we have someone else.
Yeah.
Yes, right here.
Okay, I'm not really used to using one of these things. My name is Jean Williams, and I live on Seymour Street. And along the same line of talking about property taxes, I am one of the people in Windsor that is part of the elder tax reduction program, which has been a godsend. First of all, in order to stay with it, to see whether or not we are going to be, granted it, we have to go every 2 years.
I know, they're both there.
I'm wondering if consideration can be given to making that every year, based on the fact, 2 years ago when I went, the Windsor reduction was $500. Out of curiosity, just because of things that I was hearing from people I know that live out of town, I went to the town hall with my paperwork, and after I had had my taxes done, and said, out of curiosity, what is the amount that people applying this year would get? And they said $750. So, not knowing how the program works, I don't know if I stay with the 2-year routine, if I would continue with the original 500 from 2 years ago, or if I would qualify for the 750. Not knowing that, I said, can I reapply even though I was here last year? And the young man said, yes, fine, but it just means you have to come in next year also. And I said, fine, I'll do that. And then I got thinking about it in the car on the way home, and I thought, why aren't we doing this every year? It's a trip to the town hall with your paperwork. If nothing has changed, there's no reason why you wouldn't qualify. And because the budget goes up and down, obviously, the amount of money goes up and down. And believe me, it is a godsend with the fact that everything else in our world has climbed a lot more than $500 or $750. The other side of that question is, just to wrap it up quickly for you, is what does it take, or when does myself, I'm willing to do it, put in the request that this amount get jacked up a little bit? I know someone that lives in Granby that's getting a $2,000 break from Granby. Someone, I believe it's in Enfield, that's getting $1,800. And I'm looking at what I signed up for a year ago, and I got $500. And I thought, when that person said to me, how much are you getting? And I thought, I was embarrassed to say $500. I mean, I'm all for whatever we can do for the projects that need to get done, the Board of Education, the whole 9 yards. And I realize everything in this world goes up every January for everyone. But for the folks my age, I've been single the majority of my life, except way back when, my children were brought into the world. But when you compare of what we walked away with for pension amounts, it's nothing close to what people get today. And we're expected to, basically be living the same style financially, and it's increasingly different. I mean, I'm over budget.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
okay.
thank
Peter,
you.
thank you.
Thank you for the questions, Ms. Williams. So I'm gonna in terms of the mechanics of the program, you do not need to apply every year. If the town council adjusts that dollar, the benefit amount, you'll automatically receive that adjusted up. Now, it doesn't prohibit you from coming in and making sure your paperwork is accurate, but you do not have to come in each and every year. You come in on that 2-year cycle, whatever your 2-year cycle is. And I will want to encourage folks that if you need more information about the senior tax benefit program, please call our assessor's office. There's information on the town's website, but you also can call our assessor's office. And if you, so right now, just a quick tidbit, it's means tested, so it's based upon income. And right now, the maximum income for either a married or single, married or single, is $62,200. That's your adjusted gross income. So $62,200. That gets indexed every year by this, and those numbers come from the state of Connecticut, and they go up essentially whatever Social Security is increasing. So this past year, I believe it went up 3.1%. So I encourage folks to take a look at that, and please note that the application period ends on May 15th. So if you want to take a look at that and you believe you're eligible based upon those income, please come on down to the assessor's office. I do have information here. I'll leave here that has the income requirements and the general form that's on the back of it. So May 15th is that timeline. The town council, as part of this budget, has allocated funds to increase the benefit amount. So this, I'm going to use an example just because it is by tiers. So an income for a married couple that's between $45,200 and $55,100, they would have the ability to receive $925 as a tax credit, so a deduct. That is up $325 from what they would have received last year if they're in that same income bracket. So town council's essentially increasing by close to 50% those matches. And again, it's by income, so just to put it in context, if you're a single individual with an income of up to $30,400, you would be eligible for $1,875 tax benefit, which is an increase of $375 year over year. So please take a look at this information and share it with any of your friends and neighbors that you think may be eligible. But May 15th is that time frame. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, well, the primary question was, was it a situation of, did the decrease or the increase follow?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then
It does.
and then the second part of it, which I just remembered, is that the towns can increase both the income limit, so that's $62,200, even though it gets indexed every year, the town council could elect to increase that, and some towns have. And then they can also, like they're doing this year, they can increase the benefit amount. So that's why you see it different from community to community.
Thank you.
Another question. Is there someone new?
Yeah. Stephanie's fine.
Yep, okay. Bob.
I'm Bob Ellis. I live up in the Walden Woods section of town. I understand that the budget is affected by the cost of outside services and material. Like you mentioned, the cost of asphalt and the building of roads and so forth. But do you have somebody on your staff that is devoted to doing the research for alternatives? I mean, I don't know if alternatives there would be to asphalt, but for instance, is there another supplier of asphalt and so forth?
Yep.
So it just seems like somebody should be looking into this sort of
Right.
thing.
So great question, Ms. Ellis. Thank you very much.
We should go back to dirt roads.
The town managers thought about that, eliminating street lights. Risk manager didn't like the idea of eliminating street lights. So we do have in each discipline. So remember, the town on the general government side, we have 13 different departments, very different departments, and so each of the departments are. Hope everyone's okay. Each of the departments are tasked with looking at alternatives and the most cost-effective ways of doing that. So each year, even just in terms of asphalt, we can go directly off of the statewide procurement bid, or in some years what we've done is we've actually bid it ourselves, put it out to bid, and we've actually got a few dollars cheaper than what the state had gotten through their procurement process. Don't know why. And so we also are all involved in our professional associations, and so we're doing benchmarking and best practices in terms of different types of operations. Years ago, when LEDs started to become more frequent, we were one of the first adopters for our traffic signals, where we replaced those the bulbs to make them LED. Now that was 15, 20 years ago, but that was a staff member, not a department director. That was a staff member that raised that brought that up to our level. So we're constantly looking at that, but we spread that across each of the departments because they're industry, if you will, discipline experts to look at that. That's just how we approach it. I'm sure the Board of Education has something similar along those lines.
I'm gonna catch you off guard, Ms. Batchelder. So,
So we absolutely, I meet with other MEs and other districts, and we actually share services for special ed transportation, contracted services, or copier services. We're always looking to share different services with different towns when it's feasible. And we also utilize consortiums, which help also. The state of Connecticut actually has a great landing page because they do all of the research for the school districts. So we can pick and choose different vendors that have already been pre-approved, that they came in at the lower price. So we do that every time we have to purchase.
And if I could just add to that, the town council recently authorized the purchase of a replacement of a 27-year-old fire apparatus or fire truck, and we actually use a national purchasing cooperative. So we'll often go beyond the purchasing power of either the capital region, the state, and we go out to more regional or national levels.
Yeah. Is there anybody who has not asked a question before? We have two people that have asked questions before. Yes, there's an individual over here who has not asked a question yet.
Hi, Cecilia Peride. I live at 43 Paquonic Avenue, and this was for the town manager. I feel very clueless asking, but maybe I'm not the only one. Looking at the chart in here, I saw the Great Pond Improvement District.
Yes.
It's the only one that has a really big increase.
Always.
And so I'm just wondering if you can tell something about what's being done there. What's
Yes.
going on with it this year.
Thank you very much for that question. So the Great Pond Improvement District is related to the former Combustion Engineering campus at the west end of Day Hill Road. So that's a 600-acre campus, and many of you probably have much more information about what Combustion Engineering was doing on those sites for many years since the 1950s. They started to reduce their footprint in their operations back in the late 90s, the late 1990s into the early 2000s. Yeah. And the town worked with the owners of that 600-acre parcel to decide on how to best redevelop that parcel for the again, to be part of the economic engine for our tax base. And so Combustion Engineering spent over $100 million of private dollars to remediate the environmental contamination on that parcel, on their campus. They remediated it to residential standards. And the town of Windsor, in roughly 2010, 2012 timeframe, entered into a revenue sharing agreement with the property owners. And essentially it is 50% of any of the tax revenues that get generated from within that 600-acre district. 50%, one half of those tax revenues get rebated back to the Great Pond Improvement District to pay for public infrastructure improvements. Not the private infrastructure, but the public infrastructure, the public roads, sidewalks, trail system, the water and sewer utilities to serve that 600 acres to create economic development opportunities in the future. So for FY26, it's estimated that the town will receive from those taxpayers in the district over $4 million worth of revenue. By our contractual agreement, 50% of that will be rebated back to the district, which then they use to pay their loans or debt service on that public infrastructure. So to date, there's been over $200 million worth of economic development on the former combustion campus. So that is, in a nutshell, what Great Pond Improvement District is. You will see that number very variable, up and down, depending upon when new development occurs, because it takes 18 to 24 months from the time that a project starts construction until the time that the revenue hits our coffers, if you will. And so a year from now, I don't expect to see that number anywhere near where it is currently, because there's not much development happening because it goes in cycles.
Is there another question of someone new? All right, then let's,
Joe.
and then Frederick.
Hi, my name's Joseph Perry. I still live at 347 Medallion.
Thank you.
I have another question for our superintendent. I'd just like to make it clear, I'm not going after you. With the budget, it just made me curious to look up the ranking for Windsor High in the state. It said 64, but there's no school above, below, whatever, so I just scrolled down. What stood out was South Windsor High ranked 23rd, but their budget is a tad over 100 million. I don't think money is the question, but maybe you don't have to go across the country, just across the river and get some ideas. Or do you have a collaboration in the state to exchange ideas?
Thank you, sir. So we do exchange ideas, we being superintendents. We meet twice a month, and there's a superintendent association for the entire state of Connecticut. There are 169 school districts, and South Windsor obviously is one of them. I'm actually very good friends personally with the superintendent, Dr. Kate Carter, in South Windsor. And I'm also currently the vice president for the Hartford Area Superintendents Association, which means I'll be tasked with being the president July 1. Tasks. So that's like 47 different districts. So we're always talking. And when you look at the budget, so I tried to explain this yesterday as well, and it came up the other day. The budget is not just like the district and here's a set number. There are lots of factors that go into there, and that typically is like what are you paying for, what services. So I know our special ed population is higher, and so that's a cost. I'm not blaming special ed, but that's a cost that really can't be budgeted for, and it just continues to grow. I'm also a superintendent that's called upon to speak to the legislature quite a bit. I just testified 2 weeks ago, and one of our state reps, Miriam Khan, is chairing the special ed subcommittee, which was just formed to figure out what's going on, because special ed costs are just increasing and increasing and increasing, and it's not tenable for districts across the state. So we're constantly working on stuff. We're constantly talking to each other about different ideas. No one superintendent, no matter what the ranking stuff says, that's what I was alluding to, and it's nice. People ask me when they want to move to the town, 'cause they're like, so when you moved here, I worked at the high school for 4 years, sir, before I moved my family from Springfield to Windsor. So I saw what I need to see as an educator. I know for the general public, it's probably not that easy to understand it because all you have access to is the stuff you read and what your neighbor tells you that they heard from some other person. So I don't pay attention to the rankings and the papers, great schools or whatever other thing. I just keep telling people, your kid comes to school just like you went to school to graduate, to be prepared to address life. What that means for your kid, I expect that my staff in Windsor in totality from right now, pre-K to 12, has done what they need to do. And I've seen that live and in person since 2002 here in Windsor, and it continues to happen.
Here's, we'll have him, and then we've got one more down here.
My last question to our esteemed town manager, Mr. Peter.
He said,
Schultz.
Steve, I knew he was going to you.
I see a couple big buildings. I wonder if we got coming off of us abatements and putting on the abatements. Thank you.
Good question.
Great question.
Thank you.
Good question.
Going in, as of July 1st, if my memory serves me correctly, we will only have one commercial or industrial building. Well, we will have no commercial or industrial buildings with abatements.
Oh, good.
So the only property that will have a tax abatement or tax rebate, other than the public improvement district that I spoke to earlier at Great Pond, will be the redevelopment of the Arthur's Plaza, that commercial, residential with a little bit of commercial. That's the only property that will have any type of fixed agreement in terms of the assessed value.
Thank you.
Okay. One right here.
No.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted to thank you guys for the facilities that you're providing for us seniors. If you look around this room, it's an example of the cleanliness and the lighting and all the things that we have here. We thank you very much. But I was a teacher in Hartford, and it's the same everywhere. Their kids, they behave the same everywhere. And it's really just more of them. But what I wanted to say, my wife and I have been in Windsor for a lot of years, and where we were, our kids had other kids from Windsor into our house all the time. There was a group in our garage for 4 years playing, and they thought they were musicians, and they playing their music and taking the paper off the walls. But they were a lot of fun. And I'm very pleased to say that 2 of them are now professional musicians and making their livelihoods with music. One is a pharmacist, and the other one, he's in Boston as a phys ed teacher. And the other kids who came in have done very well. Our 2 kids have done very well with the education that they got in Windsor. And which I'm very, very pleased to say, I won't have to support them.
And Bernie, can we have a question?
I like this. Keep
You like it.
I
Keep
like
going.
I
Keep
don't
going.
have a
Keep
question.
going. Keep go- hey, it's-
Keep going, Bernie.
I do want to say
I don't get this often, so
that
please.
you people can't pay enough to the school system and to the children, because they're the ones who are going to pay for your retirement.
Yep.
And not the ones in Windsor, because I don't know what it is, but the kids always take off for faraway places. But the ones who will be living here will be paid for your retirement and whatever happens to you in nursing homes and whatever. So we can't pay or appreciate, we appreciate every dollar that we contribute to the city of Windsor.
Good way to end it.
Thank you.
Good way to end it, Bernie. Is there any other question?
I have a statement.
Uh-oh.
If I may.
This is always the most fun.
The entire school system, starting at Roger Walcott. The principal was Mrs. Lachey. She made it seem like he was the only student in the school and helped keep him on track. When we went to JFK, it was Mrs. Novak that then helped keep him
Oh,
on track.
Denise?
Yeah.
He went to
Thank
Sage
God.
Park. It was Mrs. Henry that kept him on track. And in high school, it was Mr. Van. I can't say enough about all of them. They're great social workers. They did a great job with my son. He has Asperger's, and I think he's growing because of all the support he has.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Okay, I think that's a great way to end.
Okay,
All
we
my
got-
kids.
we got one more.
Do we have one more?
Mr. Ellis.
Yep.
Oh,
Mr.
Mr. Ellis.
Yeah, I just, more comment than question. I just wanted to thank Bernie and Joe for putting things in the right perspective. We need more Bernies and more Joes in this place. Just a stupid question, really. Do you ever think that the cost of living in Windsor is ever gonna go down? What's it gonna take? It's for you.
That's all yours.
I certainly hope that it can be mitigated. And we do look around and compare ourselves, to put it in perspective. It often is hard to say that we are more affordable than some other communities in terms of taxes when you still are writing such a large check. Completely appreciate that. But when we look at some of our other communities, and this is not to disparage our friends to the west in Bloomfield, but when you look at where our tax rate has been over the course of the last 10 years relative to where Bloomfield's tax rate, we have been easily 10% lower than Bloomfield has been. And they're very similar in terms of property values to us. So I would love to be able to say that it's going to be lower, but I will say that due to the economic development growth that the town has been able to experience over many decades, we are in a better position. We have been in a better position. I would like to say that it's going to continue, but there's always going to be troughs and high peaks. So not a stupid question by any means. Dr. Hill and town staff, his staff and our staff are continuing to look to try to how can we do things better. But we have amazing, as Mr. Simmons and Mr. Perry noted, we have a really good portfolio of services that, from no matter if you're a family with infants and toddlers, or if you're folks at the other end of the spectrum, there's a whole range of different services, and I would make the argument that we provide them pretty cost effectively. It still hurts when we write that check, but as we provide community services, and that's what we are. We don't make widgets. We don't make little screws for the F-135 or whatever the heck the latest model that they're making. We provide services. We provide services to all of you, to your families, past and future. And so that's what we'll continue to try to do, and do it as cost effectively as we can. But thank you very much for that question.
It's comforting to know that as miserable as we are, we're not as visible as
Before you, I just want to say, I want to say thank you all for listening to us and for actually even being interested in hearing about the budget. This is a fun time, and my wife and I joke about each year that Peter and I have the road show, three times that we talk to the community. And I tell her, I said, what I do appreciate is that these folks actually want to hear, want to learn. I wish I could see more people in January when we have 4 meetings after I present the budget. Unfortunately, no one comes. But and then you get the stories. Whereas when we can talk, whether as you just said, sir, like whether you like it or not, it's still misery, but we feel better about not being as miserable as someone else, right? Like there's something you got to learn. And I like to tell people, I have a goal. I'm not moving out of town. I moved here, and my wife and I have made up our mind. This is where we'll die. We're okay with that. Whatever it's going to cost. I hope to sound like this gentleman as an educator in another 20, 30 years. Like, it is what it is. But I'm looking forward to being able to play pickleball out here, because I saw it get built, and I park right in front of it every day. I sat here today for 10 minutes this morning watching them play pickleball, and I'm extremely jealous, so I'm miserable because I want to join them. And I do say, jokingly, but I said why I moved to Windsor is because of the way they handle business, because I clearly understand municipalities. I've been in different states, and how Windsor handles business, how we attract businesses, how we mitigate the tax situation as best we can. Nothing's really ever going to go down, but people can always look for opportunities to minimize what you have to pay by bringing in companies. And unfortunately, I look at my hometown of Springfield, Mass. I think they've done a crappy job for 4 decades. And as much as it hurt to leave there, I was happy to come to Windsor, and this has been my home now, going on 20 years, and it's gonna be. And my children have graduated from the high school, all 3 of my daughters, great education, they're fine, right? 2 out of 3, the last one, she's 18 freshman, but the other 2, they can pay their own bills. That is the standard by which we measure things, not the SBAC test. If you can pay your own bills, I'm happy. The school system did a good job. But the town takes care of the elderly. I walk through the building at different times, and I see folks in here eating, talking, and laughing. I'm like, or walking the halls. That's what you want. Every town and city doesn't have that. They don't have those things, and we do. And so I tell people, you can actually see your money at work. So as much as it hurt, we just keep that in mind.
Judy?
About Rita and Peter, have been decades, many decades of service to this town. And we are so lucky that they have the long view for Nita Jubri, Peter Sousa, and that really helps this town to do well.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you, everyone. I ditto that because I was town clerk I was there at the town clerk's office for 11 years. So, yeah, I understand how well it's run. And all 3 of my kids went through school, and actually they became decent human beings. And they paid their own bills.
Who knew?
Which is amazing. If you want more information about the budget, please go on townofwindsorct.com. On the first page, it has the budget thing. You can go in there and you can do the calculator and find out how much you're gonna have to pay. You can also go in there, it might not do the senior discount, but at least, but it'll give you that, and then if you have your senior discount, you can just deduct it. You can also go in there and do the calculator for taxes. I wanna thank for your car taxes. You can also do a calculation on your car taxes. That's new this year on that website for the budget. I want to thank Win TV for recording these 2 of the 3 forums. We've had good participation, we appreciate it. We thank the League of Women Voters and Windsor CT Votes for coming in and doing this. Again, thank you to Peter and Dr. Hill. And please come and eat the rest of the food so I don't have to take it home. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.